Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. I'm your host, David Haas. I just got off doing a one-day retreat out at Lunga Vita. It was a great event. We had 18 people come out for the one day, and those events they're great because they're like an introduction to everything that I've been doing for the last 15 years. And I was reflecting today on like what I was going to talk about in my podcast, and I was like, I have these 5 steps of spiritual growth, of living a happy life, and that I always kind of share at these one-day events because I think they are what is critical to living a life of happiness. And so I'm like, why don't I share them on a podcast? Because it's nice and people like 5 steps. And one of the things I say at these events is that growth is non-linear. Spiritual growth is non-linear. It doesn't really happen in order of operations. That's kind of like all over the place, and sometimes shifts can happen in an instant. And so I don't ever want to limit anybody's spiritual growth by putting them into a process like a 12-step or something along those lines, because I just think that you could experience extreme shifts in a short period of time. With that being said, though, I was reflecting back, and I was, today's kind of like my content day. So I was looking at, what I'm going to talk about. And, one of the questions that was coming to me is like, are you really happy? Like, how many people do you know that are like really, truly experiencing like states of joy on a regular basis? And this came to me because when I have the one-day events, I kind of do this little questionnaire, and one of the questions on that questionnaire is your overall level of happiness. And someone had wrote on there like a 9 out of 10. And I was like, well, that's really high, because most people are usually like, 5 to 7. And so, and when I think about my life, I relatively like to believe I'm a very happy person, even though like I'm not like outwardly like showing it, but internally I'm very happy with where my life's at, And so, but I do get wrapped up, and especially as I notice, like we go through seasons in life where you have seasons of like maybe abundance and seasons of where we feel like a little bit more scarce. And every time I'm in like a little bit more of a scarce season, that's when I feel like my happiness tends to start wavering a little bit. And so it's an indication that it's still tied to some sort of emotional attachment. And so probably some more work that needs to be done there. But when I look back at my life and when I started this whole process, the reason I started diving into happiness and like just living a life of happiness, like where you just wake up every day and you're happy to be alive, you're grateful to be on this planet, and you go through life joyful, and the interactions you have with people are friendly and they lift people up. And there's this, especially in today's world where everyone has become so busy, and like we don't even have time for actual connections. And what we did at the one-day retreat was this thing that I've kind of coined like the 8-minute method, where you just talk about whatever is on your mind, the thing that you're trying to resolve, and you have another person listen, but you have to talk for 8 minutes, and the other person just has to sit there and listen for 8 minutes. And then at the end of that 8 minutes, the person who listened will then say back to you what they heard. And this is something that we do in my coaching groups, is like, at any time you could go into that group and say, hey, does anyone have 8 minutes? And that's just a sign, like, I just need a sounding board. I need someone to listen and to repeat back to me what it is that I'm not seeing. And that was the first time I did that at my one day. And it was so powerful for people that had never been exposed to it, because it was like finally a connection. It was like just an opportunity to talk without someone pulling out their phone, without someone interrupting, without someone just thinking about what they were going to say next. And it was real, true human connection. And like, that's like the joy that exists in life. And it was when we get out of this dualistic world, which is I am separate from you, and we move into the non-dualistic world where we are all one and we're all connected. And that's where we experience these elevated states of joy, right? Which is like states of love. And this is when you move into like stages of enlightenment. So when I look back at my life, I was pretty much miserable. And I was miserable because I hadn't achieved the level of success that I wanted to achieve. And so I started to go to work to, one, achieve the level of success that I wanted to achieve, and then two, to understand why I wasn't really happy. And on this journey, what basically was revealed to me was that I was placing all of my happiness in the future. I wasn't going to allow myself to be happy until I, became a millionaire. And when I came to that realization, it was almost like, oh my God, like I'm kind of like wasting my life. It's like I'm like living for retirement almost, per se. I'm just grinding and hustling so that one day I can enjoy it all. And it just seems so backwards to me, And it's like this is something that actually is like really, really close to me recently, because I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm putting her in school, and she doesn't really like school, like as far as like she doesn't want to go to school in the mornings. I think when she's there, she's having fun, but I see a 4-year-old living for the weekend already, and that like really bothers me, because I have always been like, I really don't like authority and rules, and I don't ever want to have to do anything. And so what I recognized was that I created this having to do something, which was having to make money so that I could be happy. And once I recognized that I believed that money would make me happy, then I basically turned that around and said, well, if I believe that it's not really the goal that I'm after, it's how I'm going to feel. What I basically recognized was that I need to work on feeling happy now. And so without even really knowing it, I was creating my own manifestation process, because you've heard, like, once you believe it, you can achieve it. But it's really a better understanding of this is, once you feel it, you will become it. So if you, like, I thought money would make me happy. So unconsciously, I set out to become happy. And once I created happiness from within, the money began to flow. Okay. And so this is essentially the process of manifestation. And I was kind of uncovering this without even realizing what I was doing. And so then I looked back and I said, okay, what were the key factors that really moved the needle for me with respect to getting happy? And now I want to put this in here. It's like, I'm not perfect either. Like, I have moments of like saying to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is not the life that I kind of signed up for. And like, where we're feeling busy and overwhelmed and we have so much to do. And so I still get there, but from where I was 15 years ago to where I am now, my life is a million times better. Like, I wouldn't give anything to go back to where I was before. And so it's not so much the goal that we're after, let's say happiness. It's just the making sure that we're making steps towards that goal. And as we make the steps towards that goal, our life is going to dramatically improve. So for example, let's say if you had the goal of, to put this really practical, if you had the goal of being a millionaire, it's like, well, if you're only making 50K a year, when you go to 100K a year, your life's going to be a lot better. When you go to 200K a year, your life's going to be even better. When you go to 500K a year, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is amazing. When you go to 750, your life's, so it's like on the way towards the ultimate goal, your life is dramatically improving. And that's what happened to me. It's like, while I'm still not at a state of enlightenment of pure joy at all moments, at every time, my life is just dramatically better. So what I wanted to lay out here in this podcast is like, what were the key things that I did that are very practical? And there's a lot more to it. And if you ever wanted to get deeper into it, I have a whole 12-week course that I laid out, and it basically kind of like lays out everything that I did. But these are 5 of the steps that I think you could start with that are very practical and very simple to implement in your life. And if you do so, your life's going to shift. And so I'm just going to walk you through those 5 steps right now. So the first one is integrity. And I start with this because I think this is where all deservingness has to begin. And so you have to have integrity, meaning you don't lie. You just, from this moment forward, if you're listening to this podcast, just make the intention to be a truthful person with the people around you, with yourself, right? And so it's to begin paying attention to how you are lying throughout your day-to-day life. And usually lying will show up when it's like when you're dealing with something that you feel is dramatically going to affect you. If friends call you over and say, hey, do you want to come over this weekend, and you really don't want to, this is when you are going to lie to try and spare their feelings, right? But it's like, what's wrong with just saying, you know what, I really appreciate the invite, but I've had a really long week and I just want to watch Netflix on my couch by myself all week. It's like people are actually going to they're going to applaud that. They're going to completely understand, like, I'm busy too. And like, I appreciate you being honest. That's the response that you're going to get. Maybe they'll give you some pushback and be like, come on, you're going to have fun. But you just got to stick to your guns and say, like, no. The other thing is you just don't lie anymore. It's like, if you're out at a restaurant and the food is subpar and the waiter or waitress comes over and says, hey, how is everything? The normal response is, it's great. But if it wasn't great, then just tell them, and they'll actually be appreciative of the feedback. And just, I always like to use this kind of like staple that is like, just be kind. Like, you speak your truth with kindness. It doesn't have to be brutal honesty. It's like, it can be compassionate honesty. I should probably coin some sort of phrase in there, but it's like just be truthful and be kind at the same time. So it's like, in the restaurant situation, be like, I love coming here all the time and the food's always great. Today, the pasta was a little undercooked. I just want to let you know, that's all. So you guys can make adjustments. And so they're going to appreciate the feedback, And so this is what we want to do at all times. We want to make the intention to not lie. And once you make that intention to not lie, what will happen is all of the opportunities to lie will begin coming into your awareness. It's like, once you focus on not telling lies, you will start noticing all of the lies that you've been telling on a day-to-day basis. The average adult is telling about 6 lies a day. And when we tell lies at an unconscious level, we are saying that we are not a good person, because liars are not good people. We know this. And so every time we tell a lie, subconsciously, we are saying you're not a good person and you're not deserving of love, wealth, happiness. And so we want to eliminate that immediately. And we can do so very easily just by stop telling lies and let the universe, let God bring those situations. And, I've been dedicated to a life of integrity, like really hardcore, for the last 10 years, and I still mess up. Like, I still catch myself saying stupid things, and I'm like, why did I just do that? And it's like, to make myself look better, to protect myself, to protect other people. And so I just catch it though. And so maybe I'll tell, one lie every couple months, whereas before I was telling 6, probably more lies a day. So it's a huge shift. So integrity, step 1. Step 2 is gratitude. And now gratitude is such like a spiritual catchword that's being thrown around like crazy. And I think the thing that most people miss is it's not so much about the expression of gratitude. It's about becoming the state of gratitude. And this is what happened for me. I kept on hearing in all the books and all the studying I was doing about happiness, it's like, you got to move to gratitude. You got to have gratitude. And so I was like, okay, well, this seems to be working and for people. So I'm like, maybe I should implement it in my life. And that's kind of like what I did with this spiritual growth and enlightenment thing. Was I was my own guinea pig. I just tested on myself. And so I remember watching the Oscars, and Matthew McConaughey had won an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club. And he said, gratitude is reciprocal. And I didn't know what reciprocal meant. So I had to look it up in the dictionary, or not in the dictionary, on Google. And what it basically was that the more things you have to be grateful for, the more gratitude will come into your life. The more things that you have to be grateful for will flow. And I was like, okay. So like, McConaughey's doing this and he's at the top of his game. And I'm like, I might as well try this. And so I set upon to do like a 30 days of gratitude journaling. So every morning I'd wake up and I'd write out 10 things I was grateful for. At about day 10, I was like, I could tell that the system of writing out gratitude had just become robotic. I was writing the same thing out every single day, and I could tell that nothing was really shifting. And so I was obviously tapping into what I was supposed to do. And so then I set the intention that I have to write out 10 different things every single day. And while I could still write out that I'm grateful for my wife or my pets or whatever, I would also have to write out 10 additional things. And so I had to really begin to search for things that I was grateful for. But if you look at this podcast room, it's like, what are the things we can be grateful for in this room? It's like, well, one is that you're listening to me in your car, exercising, wherever it is. It's like, oh my God, like how grateful for we are that we got these cool lights and we got, the sound barriers. I have a room to record a podcast. I got Zach here doing the video. And so it's like, when you really start opening your eyes to all of the things that you can be grateful for, you'll start to see it. It's again, once the things that you pay attention to, you begin to notice more. The mind, or our ego, has one primary function, and that is to keep us safe. And it does so by focusing on the bad. This is how we evolved as a species. Your brother ate a plant and he died. So you learn to not eat that plant and be hyper paranoid of every single thing that you put in your mouth, right? Your mom was walking down a path and got attacked by a lion, right? So then you learned how to walk down paths in groups where you're protected and always be on the lookout for the lion lurking in the tall grass. And so this is how we evolved. But that mechanism, that primitive mechanism that exists inside of us, which is our mind, our ego, is still doing that. And if we don't bring attention to the fact that our mind is doing that, then we will be hyper-focused on the bad and we will miss all of the good. Here's another example. If you get 99 out of 100 on a test, what's the first thing that you do? You flip through the test to find the one that you got wrong, and you just overlook the 99 that you got right. And so the purpose of a gratitude practice is to begin focusing on the 99% that is good, that already exists for all of us. It's only the 1% that is bad, but that's what we're fixated on. And so when I started doing this, I still was seeing no shift. And then one day I'm pulling into my driveway, and I said, I'm so grateful for my green grass, and I'm so grateful for my house, and I'm so grateful for my dog. I'm so grateful and I couldn't shut it off. Like, it was just constantly playing in my head. I had become the state of gratitude, and it's still there today. Like, I have just moments of just the power and the energy of gratitude flowing through my body. And it's just like amazing. It's like joyful. It's pure bliss. And so this is what you have to do to move to a state of complete gratitude. And when you do that, gratitude, like McConaughey said, is reciprocal, meaning it will continue to flow in your life, and it'll actually accelerate the more gratitude you have. So that's step 2. Step 3 is radical responsibility. And this is a phrase that I coined, but essentially, you have to take 100% ownership for why you are the way you are and where you are in your life today. It is not because of your mom or your dad or the business or the line of work you're in or the country that you live in. It's not because you were abused as a kid. It's because of you, right? You have chosen to either ignore or not look into why you are the way you are. And so in radical responsibility, what you can do is just like look to anywhere in your life where you are passing blame. I'm not successful because my parents never taught me about money. I'm not happy because I don't have a partner. Whatever it is, wherever you're blaming, right? You want to take back that power, because when we blame, we are giving our power away. And this hit me like a Mack truck when I finally got it. I had to hear it hundreds and hundreds of times before it finally clicked. And I remember the moment. I was in a coffee shop downtown Windsor with my business partner, and I was telling him about all my problems, and he could probably sense that I was blaming everybody and everyone for why things were the way they were. And he just said to me, he's like, you got to take ownership for all that. And for some reason on that day, and probably because I was right on the edge of total financial collapse, it clicked. And in that moment, it was one of the heaviest things that I had ever taken on, right? Because I was like, oh my God, I am the reason that I suck so bad. And it was almost like, oh wow, it was like just as heavy, like you suck essentially. And so, but also in that moment, almost simultaneously, there was this recognition that if I was the reason that I got to this low, I and I alone would be the reason that I could accelerate my life forward. And once I finally saw that, then it was like that was the TSN turning point that completely turned my life around. It was like anywhere I was passing blame, I was immediately turning it inward and be like, what is my role here? Right. And then I got really extreme with it. And this is where I got the radical part, is I started looking at every element of my life and how I had been blaming a situation or a person for my current level of happiness, fulfillment, joy. And I even went all the way back to like the death of my mother. And not that I had to claim responsibility for her death, but I did have to claim responsibility for how I unconsciously allowed her death to dictate my life. So essentially, after my mom died, I became the victim of the world. I was the 9-year-old kid who lost his mom to cancer. And from that moment forward, I was the victim, and everybody, it was poor me. And I was always seeking the pity from others, the self-pity, and living in that victim mindset was probably the greatest limiting factor to my own level of health, wealth, happiness. And so I had to own that, and I had to recognize that I was never going to allow myself to go back to that again. So complete and total ownership. Look where you're blaming. Take back your power. Step 4 is define your purpose. And so this happens naturally. It's not really something you have to, I mean, I guess it is, it should be something that you should really put some thought into. It's like, and I guess a great way to define your purpose is to ask yourself the question, what would you be doing if money didn't matter, right? If you could do anything and all of your needs would be met and you'd be able to live the life of your dreams and you could do anything that you wanted, what would that thing be? And when you tune into that, this is going to be a good indication of what you're really meant to do on this earth. We are all here to maximize our potential, and every second that we spend not on the path to living our full potential, it'll be met with guilt, regret, anger, frustration, right? And so in order to get clear on who it is that we're supposed to become, we have to unprogram who we have become by taking on unconscious beliefs, programs, survival patterns that basically are the sense of I that we have today, right? And so I believed I was Dave the entrepreneur, but when I started doing this work and I started unprogramming, what I recognized was that Dave the entrepreneur was just a program that I took on to avoid the pain of the shame I experienced as a kid from not having enough, right? And so I somehow made the alignment that in order to have more, you had to start your own business and become an entrepreneur. And so then Dave the entrepreneur was born. I thought I was born with that, but it was like, no, it was a program that I took on. When I had the courage to look beyond that program, I said, well, who am I really? And who I really am is a teacher, is someone that wants to help people, a speaker, And so I set out to, live a life of helping others. And that's why you're listening to this podcast today. And so now that I'm aligned with my purpose, there's nothing that can pull me off. There's no money-making idea that will set me off course. I'm not going to put any energy into anything else besides doing what I'm doing right here, which is helping, coaching, teaching. That's what I want to be doing with my life. And so that's the path that I'm on. And so when you get clear on your purpose, it's just like a sense of knowing that you're on the right path, because self-doubt is the thing that like really, really blocks us from maximizing our potential. So if we're not clear on what it is that we're supposed to be doing, the doubt will freeze us. And so a natural, I can't think of the word right now, but consequence of spiritual growth and, trying to get to the root of what it takes to become happy will be aligning yourself with your purpose. So you could ask yourself the question, what would you do if money didn't matter? You could do a lottery experiment where you basically say you won the lottery, you've done everything, and then you ask yourself, now what? But I'll give you a quick little tidbit here, is that the end goal has to be about helping others in some way, shape, or form, right? And so if you are helping others, you will be supported by the energy of God, the energy of the universe. If it's only for you, you'll be met with force and resistance the whole entire way. It's not impossible, right? But the best, when you really are connected to your purpose, it will be of a common goal, which will be helping other people. And so what's in the highest good for all is in the highest good for you as well. So you have to basically tune into what it is that God, the universe, wants from you, right? And then go out about doing that thing, right? And so it requires an element of trust, and that leads actually to the fifth step, which is surrender. And I put this at the end because I'd heard the concept of surrender. Obviously, I was in the spiritual field of like, moving towards the path of enlightenment. I'm still in that field, and the surrender gets thrown around so much, but I really didn't understand how to surrender. Like, I didn't know what surrender even really meant. And so I think I've kind of put it into an understanding, which is surrender is the complete and total belief that you're going to be okay. And so if you look at any situation in your life, I mean, I'm kind of going through one right now. I'll share my own. It's like we're in the season of like doing big things out at Lungo Vita, and we're spending a lot of money, and the amount of sales that are coming in, it's not matching the amount of money that's going out. I'm in a place of like, oh fuck, we're gonna run out of money, right? And I have to be completely and totally surrendered to the fact that everything's gonna be okay, right? Everything is guiding me towards the greatest version of myself and the greatest version of what will help humanity most. And so if I really, truly, truly believe that, there is no worry that needs to be had. Actually, the worry and the stress will actually probably push away the things that I need to get out of this current situation. And so in surrender, people think, well, this is not just giving up. It's like, no, it's not giving up. It's giving over. It doesn't mean that you stop doing the things that you need to do to move yourself forward, but you don't do it with any stress, right? So like where I'm at right now is like, it's like, okay, well, we got to increase sales a little bit and get the summer booked up a little bit faster. I got a new coaching program that's geared around addiction that I got to get out. I got to get my loans that I have going on. I gotta keep moving down that road. But I do all of this with a sense of ease. I am not going to allow myself to lose 1 ounce of sleep over the fact that we're in a little bit of a cash crunch right now, right? Because I have complete and utter faith that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, right? And even if it's God's plan for me to close Lungo Vita, I'm okay with it. Like literally, truly, I'm okay with it. Will I do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen? Of course I will. But I'm not going to live a life where I'm like just completely stressed and putting all of this pressure on me, trying to control, creating anxiety. I'm just not going to do it because I believe I'm going to be fine. And that's the idea of surrender, right? It's a giving over of the control of how it's going to show up. And the crazy thing about surrender is when you are in that state, the help shows up in ways that you couldn't even imagine. Like I just explained to you how I think the help is going to show up, right? But I have no idea how the help's going to show up. So one of the ways, another quick little example here is in the winter, we were in the same cash crunch. So we would go through these seasons of cash crunch out at Lungo Vita. And so in the winter, we were in the same cash crunch. And I was like, oh shit, like we are in trouble here. The money that I had reserved for the winter, we went through it like real quick. And I'm like, oh boy. And so I immediately went into panic mode, and then I'm like, no, everything's going to be fine. It's like, what is it that I have to do? And so then I got to increase sales. So then we came up with this wine package where if you come out for the weekend, you get 3 wine tastings, and the wineries out there were doing amazing. And that thing blew up. Like our sales went through the roof. We did crazy sales in the winter, and the cash crunch was over. Like literally in a matter of days, it was over. Something that I thought was going to take months because I was like, how are we going to get more financing? How are we going to do this? In a matter of days, like the cash crunch came on the 1st of the month because all of our payments came out. By the 4th of the month, our sales had 5x'd, right? And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe that this happened. It showed up in a way that I didn't even think. And then the other thing that happened is we now have a winter strategy for Lungo Vita forever. Right? Forever. Months that we thought were going to be pretty much non-existent sales-wise are now good months because of this program that we created. And it also helped the wineries too. The wineries got more customers than they've ever gotten over the course of the winter. And so this is what happens when we are surrendered over to the which is something greater than you. It doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be universe. Just a belief that there's a power that's bigger than you, that has your best interest and the best interest of everyone at the forefront. And when you really truly believe that, you are surrendered. And when you are surrendered, there's this peace that comes over you because you recognize that it's like, hey, it's all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. And I'm going to continue to move towards living a life of high states of consciousness, which is joy, love, compassion, enlightenment, essentially. So these are the steps I would take. I hope that's helpful. If you're interested at all in my program, I have a 12-week course right now called The Quantum Leap. I'm accepting new clients. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram, David F. Haas, and I can give you all the details. It's super affordable. That's about it. Thanks for taking the time to listen. We'll see you next week.